let me start with Chile, if that's okay. So, because I lived in Chile for many years before coming here to New York, but I also lived in New York for many years. So I feel like I've been half of my life in Chile, half of my life in New York, and it's kind of like back and forth. In Chile, I feel like for many years there has been a more kind of, maybe I could call it traditional perspective of education and teaching, where the teacher has the maximum authority, the teacher proposes all of the contents, has to follow the standards, you know, and I think the materials are mainly written worksheets, let's say, right? So for many years there hasn't been much kind of like innovation, but recently now things have been changing, and so I feel like what I learned from here, from the US, which is obviously more diverse, there are much more cultural backgrounds here, the researchers and professors here are open to new ideas all the time, so I feel like that vision and knowledge that I got here, I was able to bring it to Chile right at the perfect time.
You know, Chile is one of the farthest country from China. And for Chinese people, we know that as the cherries, very famous from
The
Chile.
cherries?
Yes, from Chile.
Oh my goodness.
So, do you want to share anything like traditions or cultural
For
heritage?
sure. So Chile is a very diverse country, as every country has diversity, right? But in Chile, we have different climates even. So like in the north, it's more like a desert. Then we have Mediterranean kind of, and then towards the south, you can see a lot of forests and lakes and volcanoes. And then further down, you have glaciers.
Wow.
So it's like different types of, you know, little microcosmos. I have the wonderful opportunity to be teaching now in an area of Chile where there's a lot of farms, and my students who are going to be future teachers, most of them have grown up on the farm, and so it's so cool to understand how they view life, how they understand development, what success means to them, you know, to work with them to see how I can help them, you know, expand and grow based on what they think is important, because we don't want to erase what's important for them. The cherries. So cherries come out in the summer, and we are right now, January and February would be summertime in Chile, and so you know that I've lived here in New York for many, many years, and I don't think I've had the opportunity to have such amazing cherries here in New York. You know, forgive me, all my New York friends, but also because it's so expensive here, you know?
Yeah, it's so expensive and very hard to find.
Yes, absolutely. So, and it's funny because it's the fresh fruit and vegetables that are more expensive, but then a bag of Doritos is not. And so like a bag of cherries here will probably cost like $10, $10, I don't know, just guessing. But a bag like this of cherries, really nice, plump, juicy, sweet cherries in the area where I'm living in Chile, because we're surrounded by farms, that bag will cost maximum $2.
Wow.
$2.
Just
yeah.
can't believe that price.
I know. So in 1973 there was a military takeover in Chile, and unfortunately that destroyed education, especially public education, among other things. And then Chile only returned, it was under a dictatorship until 1985, so education was really not the way that it's developing now at all. There was no basis or rationality to what they were doing. I think it was very also traditional and authoritative. But since the country kind of came back to democracy, there has been advances and progress in terms of making education available and inclusive for everybody. And this government specifically has been placing a lot of emphasis in inclusive education. Quality, inclusive education where, for example, a parent who has a child with a disability will be able to get into a school, and the child will be able to interact with the peers, be in a space where they can feel that they belong, feel that they can learn in community, and the teachers can be better prepared to include everybody everybody in their classes. And so specifically regarding students with auditory and visual disabilities, I guess we can /abilities, because it's really that they have abilities, but they can't do other things, but they can do so many other more things, right? So students who are blind or deaf students as well, we're trying to find ways to train teachers and future teachers to apply strategies that will allow these students to participate in the classrooms. Whether it be sign language or visual enhancement, auditory materials, tactile materials, and so we're trying to produce these things now, these materials now in Chile, because of the lack of availability and of training. We need more resources and knowledge regarding how to include students with different abilities, differently able students, right, into the classroom, into our classroom, and work together. Because unfortunately in Chile, I don't know if that happens here in the US, but in Chile, if there are children with special needs, they would be taken out of the classroom and they would put them in another or different classroom and work with them alone there. So it's very damaging for the educational development of those children, because they're not learning the same as their peers. They're doing other things, it's not educational for them in many cases. So the idea is to find ways to include students who are differently able. We can talk about physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, right? So at the beginning, I think we have to have a better understanding of what these different abilities are and how they can be seen as resources for education, not just for them, but also for the rest of the class, as a resource for the rest of the class, to share different perspectives of life, to share different understandings of important academic concepts, to create like a collaborative learning environment so we can include these students.
As we know, you're also the founder of Traduce Global, right?
Oh yes, Traduce Global. Yeah, it kind of changed names over the years.
What motivated you to do this, to found Traduce Global?
That's a great question. It's also very related to, I guess, my trajectory in academia and education, because many years ago in Chile I realized, I realized that a lot of people wanted to learn English as a foreign language because it helps people in Chile, and maybe in your country as well, to get a better salary, to get better jobs, and so a lot of people were wanting to learn English in Chile. So I realized that it was a huge need, and I also became a translator. So I got my translator degree as well along the way, and so I said, well, I think this is a good area so that I can provide services to people in Chile who really need them. So linguistics is such a beautiful, beautiful world where we can analyze and study languages and the creation of languages and how we are able to communicate without ever stopping to agree and say, okay, we're going to be using this word now. No, we never do that, right? It just emerges, right? It's so organic and natural and part of being human. And we can apply that study, that world to anything that we really want. So in bilingual bicultural education, we were applying knowledge of language and how language works, how we can analyze language. We apply it to our observations of our students and how they are developing their linguistic repertoires. And it also really depends on your theoretical perspective of what language is and what language learning is, which is seeing language as a organic, dynamic, complex phenomenon that is very social as well, and it comprises not just structure, but it comprises your experience, emotions, identity, social movement, etc. And there is no end point, because but we would like to see how the student evolves in learning a new language in relation to what they knew before, You know, so not in relation to a fictitious standard, but in relation to what they knew before. So that's the kind of vision that we have of learning, not comparing them with, you know, necessarily with a ideal speaker, but to see the person, how they are developing their language themselves, you know, in the context that they're in, compared to what they knew before, and whether they're achieving what they need to do in real life.
So much.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you. You don't need the glue or anything.
Okay.
You just put on the window and oh, sorry. It's kind of like
Oh,
you
cool!
stay there.
I
Yeah.
love it. There's a dragon.
Yeah, it's
Right
dragon
there.
because it's dragon year.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.